Hello, and welcome back to Watching Washington. It's Friday, April 7th, and I'm Allie Ortiz.
And I'm Jaden Rusi. We are here today to provide you with essential updates on what is happening in our capital. Former President Donald Trump appeared before the Manhattan Criminal Court for his arraignment Tuesday. Donald Trump was formally charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. According to Reuters, falsifying business records is a misdemeanor punishable by no more than 1 year in prison, but what elevates it to a felony is when it is done to advance or conceal another crime. Former President Trump is accused of engaging in a scheme that used unlawful efforts to conceal damaging information related to an election, including 3 hush money payments, which is a crime under New York law.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are.
Former President Trump is the first sitting or former president to be arraigned on criminal charges. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. The next court date in the case is December 4th.
This week has been a historic whirlwind, and Trump's indictment has caused a divide in Washington. We have seen a number of politicians this week comment on the indictment, with the exception of President Biden, who declined to comment on any questions relating to the indictment with reporters in front of the White House. Former Vice President Mike Pence stated, quote, "The unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States for a campaign finance issue is an outrage," end quote. Amongst other politicians, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, shared his thoughts at a recent conference. Let's listen to what he had to say.
So I look at it from this perspective. We live in America and it should be equal justice. This was personal money. This wasn't trying to hide. This was 7 years ago, statute of limitation. And I think in your heart of hearts, you know, too, that you think this is just political. And I think that's what the rest of the country thinks, and we're kind of tired of that.
In contrast, Democrats have stood their ground. According to the Wall Street Journal, former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi has stated that no one is above the law and everyone has the right to a trial to prove their innocence. As more unfolds in the coming weeks, we will continue to update our viewers on the indictment.
Conservative Georgia politician Marjorie Taylor Greene sat down with Leslie Stahl for CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday night. The interview drew in only 6.6 million viewers, a record low for the popular show. Controversy involving Greene is not a new situation, but even Stahl was stunned by some comments made in the interview, including Greene calling the Democratic Party a, quote, "party of pedophiles," end quote. Following the interview, Stahl has received criticism for allowing Greene to be spotlighted on the popular show. In further news about Greene, on Tuesday she was seen at a protest against Trump's indictment. When trying to speak at the event, Greene was drowned out by counter-protesters and quickly had to make an exit. Following this visit, Greene made negative comments about the city and referred to it as Gotham City.
On Tuesday, April 4th, Finland officially became the 31st nation to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, commonly known as NATO. According to CNN, the official ceremony took place at the NATO headquarters in Brussels. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken was present to announce and congratulate the Nordic nation.
Thank you very much. Well, with receipt of this instrument of accession, we can now declare that Finland is the 31st member of the North Atlantic Treaty.
Russia quickly responded to the news, warning that, quote, "We will strengthen our military capabilities in the west and northwest if NATO members deploy forces and equipment on Finnish territory." With Finland's admittance, the shared land border between Russia and NATO members has more than doubled. Tensions between Russia and NATO nations will continue to escalate as the war between Ukraine and Russia in the east rages on.
Liberals have won control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court for the first time in 15 years. According to NPR, Milwaukee County Judge Janet Protasewicz defeated former state Supreme Court Justice Dan Kelly in a campaign that shattered a previous national record for spending in a state Supreme Court election. This victory brings high chances of a challenge of Wisconsin's pre-Civil War abortion ban, as well as potential overturning of Republican-drawn legislative maps. The new liberal majority will become pivotal in the upcoming presidential election, as Wisconsin is known for being a swing state. Protasewicz celebrated with her team and supporters after learning of her win on election night.
Our state is taking a step forward to a better and brighter future. where our rights and freedoms will be protected. And while there is still work to be done, tonight we celebrate this historic victory that has obviously reignited hope in so many of us.
Protasewicz was born and raised in Milwaukee, where she served 25 years as a prosecutor in the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office, in the last decade as a judge. She will take office on August 1st for a term that will last until 2033.
On Tuesday, the search for Chicago's new mayor came to a close. Brandon Johnson, a former teacher and city commissioner, was victorious. The race was tight as Johnson, a more progressive candidate, faced off against well-known Chicago moderate Paul Vallis. Johnson strayed away from Vallis' stance on crime, calling for more community development instead of an increase in the city's police budget. In response to his win, Johnson thanks his supporters earnestly.
A better, stronger, safer city is something that we're all going to work towards together. The work that we have to do together ahead is something that I'm looking forward to. So I appreciate the vote of confidence, you all. Thank you.
The New York Times has already deemed this a shift in the Democratic campaign messaging. We will be sure to see more as Johnson steps into office.
Up next, a multi-billion-dollar settlement case, the first manned mission to the moon in decades, and a shocking discovery in Baltimore are to follow.
Plus, the biggest meeting between U.S. and Taiwanese officials in years with potential nuclear consequences. Stay with us. More Washington next.
CSE provides numerous opportunities for students of all majors. This includes the student community, pizza and politics, the Boilers Go to DC Maymester, internships, and annual events like the Talk with Brian Lamb and the Research Conference.
The goal for the CCSE is to help students get more educated on politics, government, media in a nonpartisan fashion, and to learn how to use the C-SPAN Video Library for resources, for research of their own, to learn more about politics and obviously the government and journalism.
Find out what the Center for C-SPAN can do for you.
Have you been interested in joining a dance group on campus? Well, then the Higher Ground Dance Company is the perfect group for you to join. Whether you've danced for years or have never stepped foot on the dance floor, all levels of experience are accepted. HGDC is a student-run organization that puts on a showcase at the end of every semester, and all proceeds are donated towards the Andrea Rizzo Foundation. The Andrea Rizzo Foundation is a phenomenal nonprofit organization that provides dance therapy to children with cancer, special needs, and other illnesses. Not only are we doing what we love, but we are giving back in return. So come audition this fall of 2023 to make a difference, and come see our spring showcase on April 30th. Hope to see you there.
With the aftermath of the shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, there have been a number of protests and rallies in response to the lack of action from Tennessee lawmakers in regards to gun reform. More importantly, according to Politico, Tennessee House Republicans are looking to expel 3 Democrat representatives that led chants calling for gun control and reform on the House floor. The Republican leaders felt these actions were like an insurrection and that these representatives should not be allowed to continue in office. As of today, actually, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson have been expelled from the Tennessee state capitol, while their colleague, Gloria Johnson, was voted to stay in. This move by Republican House leaders has caused some controversy and may cause more of an uproar moving forward after the shooting.
This week, former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, announced his bid for Republican presidential candidate. According to NPR, Hutchinson stated, quote, "People want leaders that appeal to the best of America and not simply appeal to our worst instincts." His official announcement of his plans to run will be made later this month in Bentonville, Arkansas. Unlike his Republican peers, Hutchinson believes Trump should step aside from the race regarding his criminal charges. NPR says it's unclear whether or not Hutchinson's candidacy can make impact over the party that is firmly standing for Trump. The latest NPR poll showed that 8 in 10 Republicans are for Trump and call all investigations against him a witch hunt. More to come as the 2024 election slowly approaches.
Maryland Attorney General announced a report that alleges 156 Catholic clergy members and others abused at least 600 children over 6 decades on Wednesday. This horrifying report includes the names of 145 of the abusers, along with narratives of the incidents from the survivors. This investigation began in 2018 and has seen hundreds of thousands of documents, which include personal records, treatment reports, transfer reports, policies, and procedures. There are certain to be more civil suits on the rise. This is what Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown had to say about the report.
What was consistent throughout the stories was the absolute authority and power these abusive priests and the church leadership held over survivors, their families, and their communities.
Johnson & Johnson is designating almost $9 billion to cover allegations that its baby powder containing talc caused cancer. According to the NPR, the amount more than quadruples what the company had previously set aside to pay for any potential liability. A proposal was announced on Tuesday to have a J&J subsidiary, LTL Management, refile for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection and seek court approval for a plan that would end in one of the largest product liability settlements in the history of the U.S. The $8.9 billion would be payable over the next 25 years. The amount is being backed by more than 60,000 parties that have all filed lawsuits alleging harm from J&J talcum powder. J&J is not admitting any wrongdoing, claiming the allegations are specious and lack scientific merit. However, J&J stated that fighting the lawsuits in court would take decades and be expensive.
Astronauts for the first manned mission to the moon for the first time in 50 years were revealed Monday, with the mission itself planned to take place in November of 2024. The crew includes Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. With the crew featuring many firsts, including Cook being the first woman to go into deep space, Glover being the first black man to crew a lunar mission, and Hansen being the first Canadian to ever travel into deep space. According to reporting from CNN, the 10-day journey will send the crew beyond the moon, potentially further than any human has gone before into space.
Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen met with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday in California, marking a significant development in Taiwan's relations with the United States. The meeting took place amid growing tensions between Taiwan and China, with Beijing repeatedly asserting its claims to the self-governing island. Taiwan, meanwhile, has sought to strengthen its diplomatic ties with other nations, including the United States. During the meeting, President Tsai thanked McCarthy for his support of Taiwan. McCarthy, for his part, praised Taiwan's commitment to democracy and human rights.
Taiwan is a successful democracy, a thriving economy, and a global leader in health and science. And whether it's our deep commercial ties, strong people-to-people relationships, our shared values, our cooperation with the people of Taiwan continue to expand through dialogue and exchange. The friendship between the people of Taiwan and America is a matter of profound importance to the free world.
Once again, thank you, Speaker McCarthy, for your warmth and for your friendship. Thank you to all our friends in Congress for standing by Taiwan. Thank you.
Overall, the meeting is being viewed as a positive step for Taiwan's efforts to secure greater international recognition and support in the face of China's increasing assertiveness.
Our guest this week is a Purdue professor to discuss Chinese globalization and some of their recent interactions with other foreign powers.
This professor's research mainly focuses on comparative and global models with an emphasis on economic and political economy. I'll be talking with Dr. Dwayne Woods just ahead on Watching Washington.
Where Olympics and Paralympics are unified as one, and where all athletes at all levels have equal opportunities to play and perform at their full potential.
Athletics has been such an influential and transformative aspect of my life. So to me, RISE is about ensuring that every person that has the desire to participate in sport has the opportunity to do so.
This organization is about recognition. We believe in recognizing excellence where it is found, especially in Paralympic sports.
RISE is about driving change in our community and beyond. We hope that through our events and initiatives, we can galvanize people for our cause and inspire them to create an ever-growing network to help achieve our mission.
It's about connecting people of various backgrounds and who truly care about creating meaningful change together.
We develop projects and hold events to bring people together at the interface of inclusivity, sports, and engineering.
Our goal is to promote the equality of all sports and to improve sports performance and accessibility.
Join us so that you can have a major contribution in creating meaningful change.
Welcome back to Watching Washington. I've got Dr. Dwayne Woods with me today to discuss the topic of Chinese globalization. Thank you for being here, Doctor. My first question is actually, can you just tell us a little bit more about your research and what you do?
Well, I'm professor of political science at Purdue, been at Purdue for a long time. Right now, my research is primarily on issues dealing with how do you model social scientific questions, political science questions. So, for example, there's a big discussion and reflection in the literature about related to China, about Xi Jinping's personalization of power. And so you have different theories and ways in which people talk and engage with that. And I am looking at it, though, from a modeling point of view. And so I'm saying, how could you model personalization of power? And so I'm using different kind of like models. And instead of like trying to test this empirically in the way that we traditionally do in the social sciences, I'm actually using algorithmic simulation method.
You've studied in China, specifically Shanghai. So what do the Chinese people think about their country's power dynamic with the West?
Yeah, I didn't study in China. I was actually a visiting scholar and professor at Fudan University in Shanghai in China. So I didn't study in China. I'm not a Chinese expert in the sense that my area of research and focus has been on China. But in any event, responding to that question, it's kind of a complex question to say, and so the best way to put it is that it depends. I would put it kind of like in concentric circles, because everybody, I mean, China's a big country with a large population, and everybody's degree of interest about the US and what goes on outside of China varies. And so the farther you out on the concentric circles, let's say in the rural areas or in some of the more distant provinces from the main cities and the coastal cities, people's degree of interest is really not that high. It probably will depend on if there's some, what you might say, some salient event that takes place, and then it'll attract people's attention, and then they'll form attitudes one way or another. But in the coastal cities, where people are much more engaged with either through travel or economic business relationships or academic relationships, then the attitude about the West, in the U.S. in particular, has changed. It's become, I would say, probably a lot less positive than it was probably 10 years ago.
So now moving forward to a little bit more global relations with China. This week, Taiwan's president met with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. So what is the significance of their meeting, and can you talk about the impact it has on U.S. and China relations?
Well, actually, this is somewhat contrary to the probably prevailing opinion at the moment. Actually, I don't think it had that much of an impact on China at all. And the reason for that is that China, in the past, they would have probably cared more about this visit than at the present. And the reason they don't really care that much about it at present is, A, she's a lame duck president. So there's going to be elections in Taiwan next year. B, what mattered more to China was Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, because that gave the more of the kind of symbolic impression of somebody, the third highest ranking person in the U.S. government, visiting Taiwan as if from China's perspective, as if it's a sovereign country. And so China was concerned about that. And then the other reason why this visit turned out not to matter, and I'm almost sure this was intentional, not that the president of Taiwan orchestrated this, but the former president of Taiwan, a few days before she arrived in the United States, visited, I think he might still be in China. He was actually at Fudan yesterday in Shanghai, the university I was connected to, visited China and essentially made statements that that the Chinese government wanted to hear. And the main statement that he made was not so much that China and Taiwan should reunify in any immediate future, but that the Taiwanese and Chinese are essentially one people, one civilization. And then the other thing, which I'm assuming that the Chinese government and officials, or because they have a whole department that specializes in Taiwan, was aware of or is aware of, is that public opinion polls from China actually showed the majority of Taiwanese did not view the Pelosi visit favorably. Okay, so I think this whole visit at the Reagan Library with the speaker is actually the Chinese have treated largely as a non-event. I mean, they announced some sanctions. Largely, they're claiming that they will patrol and inspect Taiwanese or other vessels in the Taiwanese Strait. But this is really unlike the Pelosi visit. This is largely, from the Chinese perspective, not that important. And also another factor to add on to this, Honduras essentially broke its relationship with Taiwan. So Taiwan's the number of countries that recognize Taiwan as a sovereign state is quickly diminishing, and Paraguay is likely to do so as well next year. And I think that will be the last country in Latin America.
Now, from moving from Taiwan to the Middle East, the U.S. dollar has dominated the currency for oil for many years. Saudi Arabia is actually considering switching the standard currency for oil to the Chinese yuan. So what would be the impact on the global financial markets if Saudi Arabia switches to the yuan for oil?
I'm not sure. I mean, this is a kind of intricate issue that gets, and the reason is that from an economist angle, it's hard to separate out ideology from symbol from real material impact. Okay, and so the ideology part is that there are people critical of the dominant role of the U.S. Dollar in the international political economy, who are saying that this is an indication of the decline and the demise of the dollar's primary role. It depends, I guess, how you want to look at the economic model on that to make that determination. So that's the ideological side. On the symbolic side, it probably would matter because it would, in some ways, convey the impression that the U.S.'s power, which people relate in part to with its dollar dominance, is waning in that part of the world. And so the U.S. can't get what used to be one of his major allies or somebody who depended on the U.S. for military and security reasons, shifting to the renminbi as a currency. And then, coming back to the point about on the economic side, let me put it this way. I personally don't think in the short and medium term it means much.
After Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin met last month in Moscow, affirming their strong relationship, how do you see growing power in the East affecting the rest of the world?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's really any growing power in these. I think the whole problem that I've read in the media and elsewhere is, it seems like a lot of people really just don't take international relations 101. Okay. And so you have a bunch of sovereign countries with their own interests, and their interests also is related to the interests of others. So right now, China finds itself in a conflict, what the Biden administration calls a competitive relationship with the U.S., what Xi Jinping actually sees as a much more threatening process. And then he has a relationship with Russia. And now Russia has an issue with the West and the U.S., and Russia has its own interest in relation to why it invaded Ukraine, et cetera. And so if you put all that together, essentially it's an international relations game in which each side is essentially thinking of what's in my best interest. And right now, all China is simply telling the West is that it's in our best interest to consider Russia a close and intimate ally.
So do you believe the media is overplaying the threat of Russia and China being strong allies and meeting?
Well, absolutely. I mean, China and Russia don't present any kind of power threat. I mean, China might present a threat in a military sense in East Asia, but at the global level, China doesn't have really significant military capacity. And in a relationship with Russia and China, so just simply from a logistical point of view, it doesn't make any sense.
Thank you very much for your time, Doctor. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
No, not really. So say to everybody, Saijie.
That's all for this week's edition of Watching Washington. Stay tuned next week to catch more of the national highlights.
Want to try something new? How about learning an Irish jig? Come leap into the semester with the Irish Dance Club. No experience is necessary, so come to a meeting at the Stewart Center from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays. See you there.
What does mental health mean to me?
Mental health means to me.
Mental health means to me.
I think it's essential.
Mental health, I think, is something that is not as acknowledged as physical health.
Putting my emotional well-being at the top of my priority list.
I would say it means taking care of my mind, body, and soul.
Mental health means to me checking in with myself and what I'm feeling.
I maintain my mental well-being by stopping to smell the roses.
I maintain my mental health by being able to set aside time to do things I enjoy.
I get my nails done a lot. That makes me feel nice.
Spending time with family, celebrating my sports teams, and exercising.
I just take some lazy days off through my schedule once or twice a week, depending on the level of burnout I feel.
By taking a step back and doing something I enjoy, such as cooking or hanging out with friends.
Mental Health Action Week.
Mental Health Action Week.
Mental Health Action Week.
All day.
All day.
All day.
Every day.
Every day. Every day.
Here we go again, another season under the lights of Mackey Arena. And at first glance, things may seem familiar. But make no mistake, a lot has changed. Our fans, louder. Our players, better. A lot better. This is the season where things change. The season where we're not defined by the moments of yesterday. This is the season where we chase the promised land. The season where records are broken. The season where history is made. Boilermaker basketball has returned. Every rebound, every three, every outrageous dunk. It's all right here on Fast Track.